Hello, my name is Dr. Chen. In this explainer, we're going to talk about one of the most common and honestly painful feelings in design education, creative block. We're going to dismantle this myth that having no ideas means you're not creative. Because the truth is, good ideas are rarely just found. They are forced into existence. Okay, let's get into it.
This sentence, it probably echoes in every design studio around the world. I have no ideas right now. Or maybe it sounds like, my mind is just blank. Or, I can't think of a single thing. We've all been there.
And that feeling, that emptiness, it's a very short jump to a much more dangerous question, right? Am I just not creative? If you know this spiral of self-doubt, I want you to just pause before you pass that judgment on yourself. Because the problem, most of the time, isn't a lack of ideas. The problem is how we think ideas are supposed to happen in the first place.
And so here it is, the core idea for our talk today. Good ideas, the kind that lead to really meaningful design work, they're rarely just thought up in some flash of inspiration. No, they are forced out. They are literally squeezed into existence by the pressure of problems, constraints, contradictions, and just the friction of reality itself. So, let's start with that feeling of being stuck. You know the one. You're at your desk, it feels like everyone else is already off and running, and it's so easy to believe that ideas are this gift you either get or you don't. But the truth is usually something else entirely.
Most of the time, when you think your mind is empty, it isn't actually empty. It's overwhelmed. You feel like you have no ideas because the problem you're looking at is still way too big or too vague or too abstract to really deal with. It's like trying to grab a cloud, you know? Your mind has nothing solid to push against. So to get a grip on this, we really need to make a critical distinction. And I think once you see this, it can change your entire approach to your work. We have to separate the notion of an idea from the notion of a concept.
Look, ideas are easy. We all have them all the time. You see some cool product and think, oh, I could make a futuristic version of that. Or you hear about a new technology and think, I'm going to make something with that. Those are ideas, but they are not yet concepts. A concept? Now that's what drives real design work.
Let's just break this down. An idea is basically a statement of intent. I want to make this. A concept, though, that's a rationale. This is why I need to make it this specific way. An idea, it's often just something that seems interesting, but a concept, it's a direct response to a real, specific problem you've observed. And here's the most crucial part. Ideas can be a dime a dozen, they're fleeting, but a true concept, it has to be testable. It has to contain a problem, a judgment about that problem, and a claim about how your design might change things. It's something you can actually prove or disprove.
So, if concepts are what we're really after, how do they happen? Well, they don't just appear out of thin air. As we said, they are forced into existence. Let's take a look at that process. You know, a lot of students start with a really big, admirable topic. They'll say something like, my project is on sustainable design, or I'm working on quality of life for the elderly. And those are worthy goals for sure, but they aren't designable problems. They're just too large, too generic. You can't design sustainability. You can only design a very specific intervention that addresses a tiny specific part of it. A real workable concept is almost always born from a much more specific and, well, a thorny contradiction. The key is to find a conflict, a tension out there in the real world that doesn't have an easy answer. That's the grain of sand that can eventually become a pearl.
Let's make this concrete. Instead of sustainable design, what if your problem was, okay, lots of people know reusable containers are better, but they always go back to single-use plastics just because it's convenient. Now you've got a real tension to work with. Or instead of quality of life for the elderly, what if you found that many older people refuse to use mobility aids because they feel it labels them as weak and dependent? See the difference? That contradiction, that's where design actually starts.
And this same exact principle applies to constraints. Students so often resent limitations, right? Not enough money, not enough time, difficult materials, annoying regulations. But after you've been doing this for a while, you start to realize that constraints are not creativity's enemy. They are its helper. Without constraints, it's just way too easy to float off into abstraction. It's the pressure of reality, the budget, the deadline, the user's actual life that forces your idea to get sharp and specific and grounded. So this brings us to another huge psychological barrier, that feeling that your idea isn't good enough to even start working on. And so you wait, and you wait. Now, on the surface, this just looks like you have high standards. But underneath, let's be honest, it is often just a fear of being wrong. You have to understand this. Design almost never has a perfect starting point. The process is much more like this. You pick a direction that seems pretty reasonable, you make some version of it, and then you let reality help you fix it. This is why we build prototypes. You cannot figure everything out in your head. You have to make something, a sketch, a model, a little script, that reality can push back against. Okay, so let's pull all of this together. If you're someone who often feels like you have no ideas, I want to help you retranslate that thought. I want to give you a new way to understand what's actually going on in those moments of frustration. So when you say I have no ideas, it doesn't mean I have no creativity. It more accurately means one of these things. I haven't narrowed the topic down enough yet. Or I haven't found the specific thorny contradiction yet. Or maybe I haven't framed my idea as a claim I can actually test. Or sometimes it's just I'm afraid to commit to one direction and maybe be wrong. See, once you see it this way, no ideas is no longer some final judgment on your talent. It just becomes a set of solvable design problems. So the next time you feel that blankness, that rising panic that you have nothing to offer, I want you to just stop. Don't tell yourself you have no ideas. Instead, ask yourself a different, much more powerful question. What is the one contradiction in this problem that I haven't truly understood yet? Start there. The ideas will be forced to follow.